Well, welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. Thanks for joining us. The Republican National Convention has been taking place in Milwaukee all week, culminating with former President Donald Trump receiving the GOP nomination for president a third time. He selected Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his vice presidential running mate. Well, Arkansans had a presence at the convention stage as Senator Tom Cotton and Governor Sarah Sanders spoke to the group. Sanders had a primetime speaking slot. He was a little late to the party, but he did make it to Milwaukee ahead of his trip. I caught up with 2nd District Congressman French Hill for his take on a variety of subjects. Let's talk about a very serious subject. This past weekend, we saw the assassination attempt at a rally for former President Donald Trump. Are you concerned about the Secret Service and the level of protection? What's the conversation in Congress right now as it relates to Secret Service?
Well, first, horrific. A whole new generation of Americans have seen something that they might have read about, and they witnessed it on live television. My heart goes out to the Buffalo firefighter who gave his life to protect his spouse and kids. So it's just another American tragedy in our 240 years where we've seen violence at the presidential campaign level. I do have concerns about the setup. And I talked to Speaker Mike Johnson. I've been in and around presidential advance since 1984. And to have the cutaway shot on a presidential dais, candidate dais, open, was dumbfounding to me. The typical policy would be screening. They stack containers, shipping containers. They put up canvas. They isolate the peripheral side views to the dais, and they were not done. So my questions are, Trump campaign advance staff, Secret Service advance staff, tell me about the process they went through. There's no way a person on top of a building 135, 140 yards away should have a clear shot at that day.
I know I worked with the Secret Service when the Clinton presidential watch party in downtown Little Rock, and I mean, you had Secret Service on every building top in downtown Little Rock, and there were some people that scrambled up there to get a better view, and they didn't come down out of handcuffs, I can tell you that.
I really think it was a violation of Advance 101 on part of the Secret Service and the Trump campaign advance. Those two work seamlessly together. And so we have already asked the Secret Service for briefings. We've asked the FBI for briefings about the shooter. And I know Mike Johnson will be on top of this on behalf of Congress.
Let's switch to what's going on at the convention this week. On Monday, former President Trump picks Senator J.D. Vance, Republican of Ohio, relatively newcomer to the scene, as his vice presidential pick. Twofold question for you on this. Is that the best pick that he could have made for vice president? And what do you think J.D. Vance brings to the table?
Well, J.D. Vance brings to the table, let's start there, an incredible biography. U.S. Marine, raised by a grandmother in a very dysfunctional situation. He wrote a award-winning biography about it, Hillbilly Elegy. So grassroots upbringing, Marine service. And so I think he brings to the table that hardscrabble, blue-collar background in the Midwest, in the industrial Midwest. And I think Trump will put him on that campaign trail in Ohio and Pennsylvania, two swing states with that message. So that's what I think he brings.
Michigan and Wisconsin.
And Michigan and Wisconsin too. But I think that's what he brings to the ticket. He's young, he's well educated. So I think that's what he brings to the ticket. Is he the best choice? I don't know. I think there were people that had more seasoning, like a Glenn Youngkin, governor of Virginia, even Nikki Haley, who was the second best vote getter in the Republican primary. She's a two-term governor of South Carolina, our ambassador to the United Nations. But this is a decision that President Trump has to make, both from a campaign point of view and is his choice. J.D. Vance got what it takes to step up and be president if necessary. He's young, but America has done that before. I don't think Obama was a very experienced person when he became president of the United States after not even finishing a term in the Senate. So America loves youth, and we've seen that through our history. So I think J.D. Vance will be a good vice president. I think he'll also be dynamic out on the campaign trail.
America loves youth, says two gray-haired men sitting on a assignment desk in Little Rock, Arkansas. Let's talk about Trump's position on a couple things, because I want to get your thoughts on this. Number one, he's talked quite a bit about wanting to reinstall tariffs, which economists have raised some alarms about, that would be bad for consumers. It's not going to do some of, I think, the desired benefits. You're a U.S. Treasury guy. You're an economic guy. What do you think about this notion to raise tariffs on everything?
I think tariffs are a good stick to try to bring people to the negotiating table. President Trump used tariffs with both Japan, China, and Mexico in his first term to initiate and get people to the negotiating table. We got a new NAFTA, which is now called the USMCA treaty between Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. We got a bigger ag deal with China during his term with that kind of threatening. And then we expanded the free trade arrangement with Japan modestly during his term. I think Trump sees these as cudgels to get people to fair trade and open markets for American goods. But if they're taken to an extreme and they're put in across the board, they are inflationary. They are a tax on American consumers, and that's why I don't really go for across the board. I didn't like in his first term the across the board steel and aluminum tariffs. I thought they just raised costs for inputs on automobiles and other things, and they dislocated work here in the U.S. But I watched during the Reagan administration and Bush 41 administration using the threat to get market opening. And I think that's at the core of what President Trump wants, is fair trade and market opening. And I know that's where he's coming from. I think in Congress, I think a lot of people agree with my position on they're a good cudgel, but they shouldn't be used across the board, that they are inflationary. Another
issue that is one we've talked about a lot before is immigration.
Yeah.
Trump has said, and I don't really have much detail on this because it's just been more rhetoric, but he wants to push for the largest deportation in U.S. history. I think you understand better than anyone how important the immigrant economy is to the U.S. economy.
Yeah.
There's some dangers there in going too far on that, don't you think?
Well, I think what's the primary danger is the open border under President Biden. He has literally let in millions of people into the country, and I'm very concerned about the national security ramifications of that and the cost to it. We need a vibrant, legal immigration system here at the 1 million to 2 million legal new citizens per year that are naturalized, because between our growth rate and our immigration policy, it helps make us a dynamic economy, the best in the world. But we need to have legal immigration. And so I support President Trump on border security measures. I support insisting on honoring current law, which is if you want to seek asylum in this country, what does current law say? You must do it from a third country. You don't do it being admitted by parole status in the U.S., which is what President Biden has done. I think it's the wrong policy. I think it sends the wrong message to people outside the U.S. that we have an open border. So I support former President Trump's position that we would deport criminal aliens and that people are in the country illegally. I think there should be a analysis of that, and in his first term he focused on people who were felons in the country.
We've got about a minute left. Last question for you. The Republican National Committee's platform has stripped out their previous support for a national abortion ban. Obviously, the overturning of Roe v. Wade has put that back into the state's camp there. Do you support a national abortion ban?
No, I've said all along, and I've had the same position on abortion I had long before I ran for Congress, which is it needs to be as limited as possible, but I've always had exceptions for the life of the mother or rape and incest. That's been my position from the beginning. And the view that the court said was, you don't have a constitutional right to an abortion. And so that decision's moved back to the states, and I think the states is where it belongs.